Marie Antoinette is most famous for her sense of fashion, her expensive habits, and her humane death. It's no surprise that Marie was one of the greatest spenders out of all French queens. On the contrast, most of the French population was starving and working brutal days as serfs. This contrast would cause terror in the nation, and then the end of the queen herself. Marie Antoinette was born on November the 2nd, 1755. Her father was Holy Roman Emperor Francis I, and her mother was the famous Maria Theresa. She was born Maria Antonia Josefa Johanna. Antonia was the 15th of 16 children, so expectations were low in terms of her expectants. Not much is known about her early life. However, we do know her sister Charlotte was her favorite sibling. Being from Vienna, Antonia was expected to be a pawn in the game of European domination. At the age of 14, Antonia was betrothed to the Dauphin of France, Louis, or later known as King Louis XVI. The old King Louis XV was falling out of favor towards the end of his life, so the people were optimistic about a new young ruler. Antonia became, and excuse my French here, Marie Antoinette Josepha Jeanne after her marriage to rid herself of her native-tongued German name and assume a French one, as was custom in Europe. At the age of 19, Marie became Queen of France after Louis's grandfather, Louis XV, passed away. As mentioned before, this marriage was for control of Europe. France and Austria had long been enemies, and after the 7 Years' War, Austria decided to make an alliance with France, and they would seal the deal by betrothing Holy Roman Emperor Francis I's youngest daughter, at the time, Marie, to the grandson of King Louis XV, the future Louis XVI. Marie was admired at first, but the French court was a culture shock for the young queen. She was used to having privacy in the Austrian court, but in France, she had no privacy at all. A small amount of the court didn't like Marie because they feared her Austrian influence on the king as well. Marie and Louis famously had issues consummating the marriage, but that was fixed when Marie's brother, then Holy Roman Emperor Francis II, popped up unexpectedly and had a chat with Louis. Their issues were soon solved, and Marie unfairly took the blame of the childless marriage for years, and even having the child didn't improve things for long. France still had a feudalist system, very old and very cruel. There was no middle class. You were either extremely wealthy or extremely poor. Bread was too expensive for the peasants, while the wealthy wasted it. King Louis XVI also helped the United States win the American Revolution, and we thank you for that, Louis. But this would come back to haunt him. Between this and the 7 Years' War, France was broke, and all but the wealthy felt it. A nation starving, yet as we'll discuss, the wealthy still had a means to live lavishly. French feudalism was called the estates system. The estate to which a person belonged to would determine the rights and status in society of said person. This was a life sentence, and moving up the system took generations. The first estate were the clergy, the second estate would be the nobility, and the third estate were everyone else, aka the peasants. Peasants made up 96% of French society, so needless to say a very unbalanced system was at hand. The American Revolution made many connections to the peasants of France. If the French helped America fight off tyranny, then why couldn't the French fight off its own tyranny? But I'm getting ahead of myself. Marie, being foreign and from a country France was long enemies with, had an effect on the Queen's popularity. The French were just at war with Austria, now they called a Viennese queen, and they pay for her expensive habits as well. This is easy to see in hindsight. I assume Marie wasn't aware of how tone-deaf she appeared. Versailles was the gold standard of palaces in Europe. No other compared to its lavish design. The classical and Baroque style architecture stunned all who witnessed it. It had its own population, made up of servants and laborers, which really made the palace grounds its own city. And in time, Versailles became the de facto capital of France. Marie Antoinette was amazed by the palace. She must have lived mediocrely compared to her stay at Versailles. This move up in bouge might have inspired the queen to get comfortable and to live a lifestyle that she thought she deserved. On Marie Antoinette's father's deathbed, he warned her to be wary of who she trusts and to not live frivolously through spending and gambling, as if he knew she would. She disregarded this and began her reign in the high life. She gambled and often lost large amounts of money that Louis would have to settle quietly. She would do this almost nightly while Louis was asleep in bed. Louis rose early, Marie would be up around noon. Louis was reserved, while Marie was an excellent entertainer. Polar opposites, and yet they did have a cordial marriage. Marie would host so many parties and lose so much in gambling, she became known as Madame Deficit. Of course, the queen had a large team to help prepare her hair and to do her makeup throughout the day. It was customary of the period for the wealthy to change clothes multiple times a day instead of bathing, so these stylists would be needed all day. Her iconic hairstyles, not the gunshots. Okay. Her iconic hairstyles could be at rare times simple, and most oftentimes up to 3 feet in height, fully decorated in a theme. Some styles would include a vase full of water, topped with an elaborate bouquet. Some had entire naval battle scenes, yet most just included intricate braids, nets, and large colorful plumes. This would take hours to do just to have it on for 2 hours, but Marie didn't mind the cost. She also had a love for fashion and art. Marie would buy over 300 dresses a year, many untouched due to the sheer quantity of clothes. She also adopted many children and funded their living and school expenses, a genuine task, yet her first adopted son fought with the revolutionaries when terror broke out. The child didn't appreciate being purchased as a child and being torn away from his family. Life in Versailles became too overwhelming for our queen. The lack of privacy and poor sanitation of the palace depressed her. This is when Louis ordered to have a small chateau be built on the palace land just for Marie. She named it Le Petit Trianon. This was an escape resort for Marie and the children, a place where no one could bother her and her children unless invited. She had the chateau style like a rustic barn and had a real peasant family run the farm. Her and the kids would dress as peasants and role-play peasant work. It all must have seemed very cute to Marie, but not to the peasants. The nation began to despise this woman as a foreigner, living lavish of all the French peasants' work. She was definitely a major reason for the economic problems, according to literally everyone. Marie never said, let them eat cake, but she might as well have. These people were dying in droves every day, and she decides to cosplay as them. Marie would answer for her sins unfairly. She was very tone-deaf and irresponsible, but what monarch wasn't? Her trial during the terror was disgusting. Although she had no love for her people, she didn't deserve death. The guillotine was considered humane and revolutionary. It was easy to sentence her to death, knowing that it would be in the most humane way possible via guillotine. A very tragic end for her and her family, but she did get her wish of being remembered as a fashion icon. I greatly appreciate you all listening to my video today. Marie Antoinette is always an interesting topic to me. The gaudy lifestyle of the hair, the nets, the lace, the dresses, the crazy things that she will put inside of her hair. It always just greatly interests me. I really do appreciate the amount of interactions and comments and likes on my last video. So please let me know what you thought about this video in the comments below as well. Please leave a like and consider being one of my first 1,000 subscribers. I'd really appreciate it, and you would be helping the channel grow. Please let me know future videos that you'd like to hear about. And again, I thank you for listening and hope you all take care and have a safe rest of your day. Thank you.